Welcome to an introduction on coloring skin. I'm going to show you today my favorite colors to work with, but there are lots of different options for coloring skin. So I'm going to show you how I do the skin, the face, and the cheeks, and then we'll go from there. So the base color that I like to work with is E50, and I use the pen on its side, doing small circles to get a base coat. And I'm not too fussy here in getting full coverage. I just want to get a little bit of a base coat. And then I move on to my next color, which is E01. And here again, I'm holding the pen on its side, but this time I'm flicking inwards, going all around the face. Then I go back to my E50 and just blend out that seam ever so gently. I'm avoiding the lips and the eyes because I'll add some color to those later. So now we're starting to see a little bit of depth, but I want to add a little bit more color. So I'm going to go in now with the E11. And again, using the pen on its side and flicking in towards the center of the face. All around. I'm going to go in a little bit further under her bangs, because she's going to naturally have more shadow in that area. Then I go back to my E50 and again blend out that seam. So I'm starting to get a little bit more depth, a little bit more color into her face. I'm going to go now to the E13, and I'm just going to highlight or add some shadow to very specific areas, and here under the bangs, and just wherever I think there would be a little bit more shadow, kind of like when you're doing makeup and you're adding contouring to your cheeks. So we're just going to add some definition to some certain points in her face, and then I go back to that E50 to blend it out. I like the E50 as a base color because I find it's a little bit more natural, maybe closer to my own skin tone. A lot of people like to use the E00 and the E000, and I find those a little bit too pale for my liking. I'm going to go back to the E01 here. And because the ink is wet, it blends out really nicely and naturally, so I'm not having to add any effort to blend it out. And I'm just getting a little bit more definition, a little bit more depth of color here. I'm going to bring that in a little bit further. She's a bit pale in the center. And you can see that it's really a layering process, and that I will go back probably 4 or even 5 times adding layers of color to make it just look a little bit more natural. If you look at your own skin, you would see that you have lots of different colors and different shades in your own skin tone, and that it's not just flat and just 1 or 2 colors. So I like to make my pictures the same. Now you notice I haven't colored her neck. Just for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to do her facial structure in this video. But I would follow the same process for coloring in her neck and use the same colors. There are lots of different options out there for coloring different skin tones, different Caucasian skin tones, African skin tones. There's lots of different options if you look online. This is just one that I like to use quite a bit for the types of images that I color. So now I'm relatively happy. I would probably go back in and add a little bit more definition, but so that this video doesn't wind up being 20 minutes long, we're going to call it a day here. And I'm going to add now some cheek color. I like to use the R20 as a cheek color, and I use the tip-to-tip method here. So I use the E50 to pick up some of the R20 and build it up, just like you would if you were putting blush on your own face. You can just build it up and layer it, because it's much more difficult to remove if you've added too much color than it is to add. And then to clean off that tip, you can just scribble off on another part of your paper, and that pink will just come right off of the tip. Another little way to blend out the cheek is if you use the R01 to soften the edges of the R20. You can even use the R01 by itself right onto the face to blend out the R20 a little bit more naturally. And then I go back with the E50 and blend out all of the seams. It looks a lot darker as it's wet, but it will dry a little bit lighter and will look a little bit more natural when it dries. But that's how I like to color a face. Thank you.